I'm going to do joint meeting. What's in the draft? I'll call you. I'm not lying. I don't lie.
Good afternoon. I am going to call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole for Wednesday, March 7th to order. My name is Andrea Jenkins. I am the chair of this committee. And with me at the dais are council members Palmisano, Johnson, Goodman, Ellison, Warsame, Schrader, Council President Bender, Council members Cunningham, Fletcher, Reich, Cano, and Gordon. Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum of the committee today. Today's agenda consists of 8 committee reports, and we will begin with the Economic Development and Regulatory Services Committee, chaired by Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Economic Development and Regulatory Services Committee is bringing forward 5 items. Item number 1 is the Jijiga Event Center change of owner. Item number 2 is the Canadian restaurant. There are a number of items, including extended hours with that in parts 1, 2, and 3. Item 3 is a rental license revocation for the liquor business and gambling licenses. And item number 5 is grant acceptance of grants to the projects in the city from DEED, the Hennepin County, and the Met Council. But with that, I'm happy to answer questions on any of the items we're bringing forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Goodman. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we will hear the report from the Enterprise Committee, chaired by Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Enterprise Committee brings forwards to you for consideration, I believe, 6 items for your review. I don't have that right in front of me here, but those are all IT-related contract items. We also conducted and completed a public hearing on the appointment of Director Susan Siegel. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Palmisano. Are there any questions? Are there any questions?
Actually, Madam Chair, if I may, the 3 items being forwarded are 3 contracts that are IT-related contracts for your consideration today. I just found my notes.
Not 6. Did you get that? Clerk, thank you, Councilmember Palmisano. Are there any questions? Seeing none, our next committee report is the Housing Policy and Development Committee, chaired by Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Housing Policy and Development Committee will be bringing forward 4 items. The first is a land sale at 3210 Morgan Avenue North. Second is an agreement with Affordable Housing Connections for home monitoring consulting services. The third is approving additional funding as a supplemental award for the Minneapolis townhomes. And the fourth item is amending our contract with Homeline for information and referral services in the amount of $100,000 for a new amount not to exceed $400,000 and an extension from December 2017 to December 31st, 2018. And I'm happy to answer any questions on any of those items.
Thank you, Councilmember Gordon. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Our next committee report is from the Public Health, Environment, Civil Rights and Engagement, or Peace Committee, chaired by Councilmember Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Public Health, Environment, Civil Rights and Engagement Committee will be bringing forward 7 items for consideration at Friday's City Council meeting. Number 1 is a contracts with Clifton Larson Allen and Mike Wilson and Associates for Neighborhood Audit Services panel. Two are two Public Health Advisory Committee appointments. The third is a contract with Fairview Health Services for lab testing services with the city school-based clinics. Number 4 is a host agency cooperative agreement with MPHA. 5 is accrual and use of sick time ordinance, a technical change to that. 6, youth violence prevention. There was a staff direction, including to work with stakeholders, including the council offices and mayor's office, for the staff to come back with recommendations on the future of the Youth Violence Prevention Executive Committee. And also number 7, a contract with Neighborhood Health Source to provide sexual health services for young men of color. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair Cunningham. Are there any questions? Any questions? Our next committee report is the Transportation and Public Works Committee, chaired by Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The committee will be forwarding 19 items for full council consideration. Item 1 is the 5th Street Southeast Pedestrian Bicycle Bridge. That's the Act of Municipal Consent and Maintenance Agreement with MnDOT. Items 2, 3, and 4 are reconstruction projects scheduled for this year. Item 5 is the reappointment of Director of Public Works. Director Hutchinson will be reappointed per the mayor's request. Item 6 is the agreement with the Minnesota Department of Transportation, delegated authority for federal aid projects. Items 7 through 12 are all contract amendments with different activities of the department. Item 13 is an interagency cooperative agreement with MnDOT for construction of traffic signals. Item 14 is the Corridors of Commerce program supported projects as submitted by staff. Item 15 is the Ork Park Alley reconstruction or construction project, and that's a designation, cost estimate, and setting the public hearing for May 1st, 2018. 16 is the application for Hennepin County Bicycle Sidewalk Grant Funds. 17 is the D-Line Bus Rapid Transit Draft Station Plan, City of Minneapolis comments for that project. And 18 and 19 are bids for activities of the department. I'll stand for any questions on details of each item.
Thank you, Councilmember Reich. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we will move to our next committee report, which is the Ways and Means Committee, chaired by Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Ways and Means Committee has 6 items for your recommendation, for the council's recommendation. The first item is the reappointment of the city assessor, approving the reappointment by the Executive Committee of Patrick Todd to the appointment position of the city assessor for a 2-year term beginning January 2nd, 2018. The second is a legal settlement claim of Brian K. Pfeiffer. The third is a legal settlement claim of Georgina L. Schultz. The fourth is a no-fault claim of James T. Frost. The fifth is a contract amendment with NRG Energy Center for steam supply to heat the Public Service Center and the Community Service Building. And the final item is a bid for the Minneapolis East Side Storage and Maintenance Facility Demolition Project, accepting the low response bid of Northern Lines Contracting, submitted on official publication in the amount of $687,280. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Warsame. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we will move to our next committee report, the Zoning and Planning Committee, chaired by Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Zoning and Planning Committee has 3 items for approval. The first is 2 appointments to the Board of Adjustments. The second is the denial of a conditional use permit on behalf of Sherman & Associates, and the third is the rezoning for Urban Works Architecture. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Schrader. Are there any questions? Our final committee report is the Executive Committee report, in which will be given by Council President Bender.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Executive Committee actually held 2 meetings this week. The first was a special meeting on Monday, and the second was our regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday. At the regular meeting, we had the reappointment for Barrett Lane as the Emergency Management Director. And I guess I should say actually first that we considered 3 more appointments by Mayor Fry. Those appointments are for City Coordinator, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, and the Emergency Management Director. The Clerk's Office will publish the legal notices required for these hearings. And so I'm just informally announcing these dates and times for the public so we have as much time as possible to let folks know what's happening. So like I said, the first one was Barrett Lane as Emergency Management Director. The plan is to hold that public hearing at the Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee at its regular meeting on Thursday, March 15th at 1:30 p.m. The second is the public hearing for the appointment of Nuria Rivera Vandermeide as the city coordinator. That would be conducted by the Enterprise Committee at a special meeting called for Thursday, March 15th at 3:30 p.m. That would follow the regular meeting of the Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee. The third is the public hearing on the appointment of David Frank as Director of the Community Planning and Economic Development Department. That would be conducted by a joint meeting of the Economic Development and Regulatory Services, the Housing Policy and Development, and the Zoning and Planning Committees. All three of those committees have work from CPED, and that would be conducted at the beginning of the regular meeting of the EDRS committee meeting, which is on Tuesday, March 27th at 1:30 p.m. At the meeting on Monday, that was a special meeting that was called by the mayor of the executive committee to take up the appointment nomination of Susan Siegel as the city attorney. The intention is to refer that to the Enterprise Committee at its special meeting that would be called for Thursday, March 15th, starting at 3:30 p.m. Following those public hearings, the committees would then forward the recommendations to the full council for the final action on those appointments. And so the final action on all of those 4 nominations would be intended to take place at the regular meeting of the City Council on Friday, March 30th. Madam Chair, I would just note then to clarify that the 3 new appointments would have public hearings, but the intention was not to reopen a new public hearing for the city attorney following the 2 previous meetings where the public hearing was already held and closed by the chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, President Bender. Are there any questions? Councilmember Gordon.
This isn't really a question. It's just that as the senior member of the executive committee, I want to apologize to all my colleagues that I participated in what I think was a mistake, oversight that kind of got us in a bit of this confusion about one of our department head appointments. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about, right? You followed this in the press. I think it's really great that now this is properly before us because it's been referred to us out of the executive committee. I'm trying to go through the rules, look carefully at the charter, and make sure that we don't make any other mistakes along the way. So I'm considering bringing a motion that would that we could vote on to suspend the rules. That would make it very clear that we are going to suspend the rules to say that a public hearing isn't required on the city attorney appointment, basically because we already had some before maybe it was properly referred to us. So I just thought I'd let you know that I'm working on that. And between now and Friday, I'm happy to get any input or your thoughts or answer any questions, or if you want to, we can discuss it more here.
Council President Bender.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate Councilmember Gordon kind of bringing more detail to that. As he alluded to at the first executive committee meeting where the matter came before us on the nomination of the city attorney, the vote count was 2 in favor and 2 abstentions. The city charter actually is the place where is stated that there have to be 3 affirmative votes for something to pass through the executive committee to come to council. I know many of you have been talking with staff about this and each other. At the executive committee meeting this week, I believe the vote was 4 yes votes and 1 abstention. So that did pass through the executive committee. I just wanted to note that the way that we govern or direct the appointments of charter department heads is found in part in the charter, but in part in our council rules. So I think if anyone has questions, the clerk's office has been supporting this, especially the piece with the council rules. Those are our own rules that we've adopted. It was the cycle. The rules committee was on February 7th, and we adopted the rules on February 9th. So those are updated. We just made a few changes to the rules that we had in the previous council. So I guess I can leave it with that. My interpretation of our council rules is that we don't need to suspend our rules to not hold another public hearing. We've already held a public hearing on the nomination of the city attorney over 2 different enterprise committee meetings, but I think we can continue to keep discussing those details, or if the clerk wants to chime in now, or if the chair wants him to, that, you know, I think it's up to you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Clerk.
Madam Vice President, I only want to correct one statement that was made. I believe, I could have misheard. I think that the council president indicated that the requirement for 3 votes by the executive committee was in the city charter, and that is inaccurate. The requirement for 3 votes by the executive committee on nominations is in the rules of the executive committee itself, not in the charter. So I just wanted to make sure that as that's on the record, we've corrected that the requirement for those 3 is in the rules of the executive committee.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Are there any further comments? Seeing none, I want to thank everyone, particularly Councilmember Gordon, for your explanation, and that completes our agenda. Seeing no further business to be presented at this time, we are adjourned.